Hello, encouragers. I'm Rebekah Scott, wife, mother of 4, author, and owner and designer of Rebekah Scott Designs. I'm here to encourage you, to make you feel that I can do this spirit each and every day of our awesome journeys to fulfill our many important roles. I believe we are fully equipped to execute, and I will provide as much knowledge, practices, and systems as I can to help you understand just what I know you can do. Execute. We got this. Hello, encouragers. I want to start this podcast with a little excerpt from my book, Equipped to Execute, Guiding Moms to Joyfully Impact Family and Business. I want to read this to you to talk about what we're going to talk about today, your super skill. This is on page 103. Now it's time to rummage through your closet and pull out your superhero cape. We're going to talk about super skills. Your super skill is the thing you can do at breakneck speeds with high attention to detail and feel on top of the world while doing it. You sing, laugh, fly, and dominate in this area. It's something you can do for hours on end without even realizing hours have passed by. This is the sweet spot where you're in the zone the whole time. And then, once finished, you're not exhausted, you're energized. As you grow as a mompreneur, you're going to face the hurdles of both family life and business. This means your team will grow, and you may even add another little coworker or two. But you must always own your super skill and hold it tight. It's the thing that no one can do like you can, and something you should never hire out. In fact, if you keep at it, your super skill will actually energize you to maintain and grow your business. So the weighted question is, what's your super skill? Resist the urge to overcomplicate this. Your super skill can be a simple, everyday task. The important thing is to absolutely own it and keep it up all day. For example, my super skill is mass production. Odd as it may sound, I can do it day in and day out without ever feeling exhausted. In fact, I've done it for 14 years now. Here's what it looks like in my life. Every time I think of a new project or item to introduce, my thoughts immediately focus on how to mass produce it. I instantly calculate how many cuts it will take and what kinds of fabrics I need to serge. A serger is a souped-up 4-threaded sewing machine. I imagine big piles of material just waiting to be crafted. I outline what the kits I hand out to my seamstresses will look like. Honest to goodness, I love everything about mass producing. So even though I've hired other work-from-home moms to help, I still do the serging and make the kits to this day. This means I handle about 3,000 pieces in a single kit building day, and I love every second of it. I realized mass production was my super skill when my business experienced a spike in growth and I hired some help. The parts I was most hesitant to give away or train someone else to do were the things I loved. Also, the truth was that no one could even touch my speed. I had built on so much experience because of the hours involved in mass production, I simply knew it better. I had no problem hiring out things I didn't excel at, like taxes and Facebook. But I found out that maintaining this part of production was essential to both my business and my enjoyment. Your super skill doesn't have to be sexy or cool. In fact, for most of us, it won't be. After all, you probably weren't expecting the phrases mass production and super skill to be used in the same sentence. Mass producing isn't romantic, heroic, or sexy, but it's mine. This realization changed my life and business. I knew which areas I could hire out so that I could focus on honing my unique skill set. This meant I could focus on doubling or even tripling our output without sacrificing quality. I also knew if I used my super skill each week, I'd stay happy and energized. Your super skill is usually a unique, even offbeat thing. It will flood every part of your life too. Once you identify it, you'll notice you use it all the time. I don't simply mass produce purses, I mass produce everything. I don't make one casserole, I multiply the recipe and freeze the rest. I don't make 10 pillow backs, I fold and cut 20. It's a compulsion as much as a conscious choice. It's just how I'm wired. That's an excerpt from my book, Equipped to Execute. And I just wanted to read that to you to really help you to understand why I think knowing your super skill will drastically change things for your life going forward. It's also the part in the book where you need to be still enough and in a moment where you can really think on what it is. Because your super skill does involve 3 things. It involves joy, compulsion, and skill. When these 3 things converge, you will know what your super skill is. And in the book, I give this fancy diagram of 3 circles that meet, and the circles are called joy, compulsion, and skill. So when it's your joy, it means you can work for hours without food or drink or even bathroom breaks. You're in the zone because this thing makes you so joyful, okay? You sing and you dance and you smile, and it's very fulfilling on a deep level. You always look forward to it. You take breaks from other things to do a little bit of it. Talking about it makes you glow, and you get the holy goosebumps when you're doing it. That is the joy that comes from your super skill. So think about the things that bring you joy. The second one is compulsion. The compulsion part of your super skill, it means that it's something that you can't sleep if you don't do it. Like you do a little bit of it every day and you're kind of geeky about it and you're embarrassed to admit to people the details you know about it. You're naturally attracted to you get excited, you feel your heart rate increase, you geek out over the details. Mine is mass production, meaning I time everything. I must figure ways to make things faster always. I debate how long and I time how things will take. And I'm always thinking, if I mass produce this, how would I do it? How many cuts? How many surges? How many people involved? How can I simplify and multiply this? That's kind of the geeky compulsion part of my super skill. And the other thing you need for your super skill, so we've talked about joy, compulsion, is skill. So what have you been doing for quite some time? What did you go to school for because you thought, yeah, I would like to have that skill set? What did your grandmother teach you? What did your dad teach you? What did your mom teach you? What are just natural skills that you have had that just kind of came naturally to you? And you also received training on it, and you've seeked out even continuing ed on it. Sometimes it's a skill set that's already been in the family, or they'll say, you know what, that is just like Aunt Jill, or whatever it is. It's kind of a skill that's very familiar to you and it comes naturally to you. So when these three things combine, joy, compulsion, and skill, you have your super skill. So I recommend taking them apart and just writing. First of all, I recommend buying the book so that you can kind of look at this chapter and break down the questions at the end of the chapter. Write down what brings you joy. And it could be multiple different things. What do you have compulsion to do every day? Write down those things and then write down what are your skill sets. And chances are those three will converge into something and you realize that is where your super skill is. So, for example, to give some more cases for knowing your super skill. My brother Joshua, since he was a kid, his for sure joy was always walking out into the machine yard, which if you are familiar with farming at all, you usually park your machinery in a yard or sometimes in a building or whatever. But we just had a yard. We lived out West River in Phillip, South Dakota. And he would walk there with his pretend lunch, meaning grab his lunch bag with nothing in it, pretend that he was going to be a farmer, walk across the crickety-crack wood bridge, climb up into the tractor, and pretend he was farming for the day. At the age of 3, so really young, he just had so much joy when he thought about farming. He would lay out all of the tractors on our living room floor, and God forbid my twin sister and I should mess up his patterns, so to say, from farming. And everybody who's listening to this right now has that cousin or that brother that was like this with their farming materials. So this was Joshua. So for sure, that's what he got joy from. He went out there nonstop to play it. And then as soon as he was old enough to do it with my dad, it just caused him joy. He would skip and jump after school if he knew that he was able to farm or anything ranch or farm related. His skill was that he was trained in it because we did farm and ranch. And then he also did seek out an education in it from SDSU here in Brookings, South Dakota, because he wanted to get furthering ed on it. And then it was also compulsion. Like he couldn't not do it, even though he actually finished his degree at SDSU with a music education degree and became a choir and a band teacher. Just because of circumstances that changed out west, we stopped farming and ranching, so there was nothing to go back to. So Joshua had to switch gears and he decided to do music, which was also just another skill that he had. And he did have joy from music as well. So he was a choir teacher, but even while he was a choir teacher, he could not farm and ranch. So he would get part-time jobs with whatever rancher was in town that needed help. Even when he became a father and didn't have a lot of time, he could not farm and ranch. He just had to. And part of it is teachers are not paid enough, period. So he did need part-time, but for sure he knew that his part-time would be farm and ranch related. And so he even did his compulsion to have a piece of that even while having a full-time job. So when I started asking Joshua, okay, so I know what your joy is, I know what your skills are, and I know what your compulsion is. What would you say your super skill is? And Joshua said it is helping people solve problems. He's always been a fixer, which is why it's his best attribute and sometimes his worst attribute, he says, because he ends up solving a lot of problems that probably weren't his to solve. So you could say that it is his obsession to keep solving problems for people. It has led him to be the man that he is, and it just so happens that he took great joy and interest in all the things machinery related. Remember him walking across the yard to the machinery yard. Making other people happy by hauling things or doing things that they would rather not do or need done, there will be a problem, and hands down, that's his superpower. He says, I love driving the machinery, but it's what I can do with the machinery to solve problems for other people that is my passion and my obsession. It's probably why I enjoyed being a teacher so much. All kinds of problem solving there as well. So when he filled this out, he realized his super skill is helping people solve problems. It just happens to mostly be with machinery. Now, he's used it a lot in different things too. He owns 2 semis that run up north in the oil field. So he's done a lot of that. And he's moved my husband around a lot with his construction business. Also, solving people's problems with large machinery. Hello, encouragers. If you are feeling encouraged during this podcast or need more clarification or direction, I do offer coaching. And then also we offer a 1-day workshop. Visit our website at shoprsd.com and click on the podcast link on the top bar. I would love to chat with you and help you succeed. So I've given you my super skill is mass production, and my brother's Joshua is solving people's problems with large machinery. Again, both of these, not super cool, not super sexy by any means, but they are what we really believe are our super skills. And when you know that, you can 10x it, so to say. I'm also going to tell you a little bit about Crystal and what her super skill is. Encouragers, I thought I would invite Crystal, who is actually an alumni member of our Encourager Workshop, to tell us a little bit about what the super skill in her own life has changed with her business model and just how it's aided her and how she runs her business. So thank you, Crystal, for tuning in today with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what your business is.
Sure. My name is Crystal, and I own the Paisley Pod, which is a mobile and online boutique. So a little bit different than a normal boutique. I don't have a storefront, but I have a big pink truck that is a store that I get to travel around with. I'm also a wife and a mom to 3 little people that I love very dearly.
And I love that, and we'll get into this a little bit as we talk about your skill set, the different business model that you chose, because it's not brick and mortar. It is a mobile boutique. It's a huge, adorable pink truck.
Yeah.
So your super skill is where joy, skill, and compulsion coincide or meet up. So tell us, what is your joy?
My joy, and I will say this part of your book was probably the most difficult for me because I was thinking way too hard about it. But after chatting with my husband and my kids, I decided to just go with exactly what my gut was telling me.
Yeah.
So my joy is networking and socializing with other people at events or anywhere there are people. I am happiest when it's a room full of people and I can walk from person to person and chat with all of them and just learn more about them and have fun with them. That's when I am most happy. And I could do it for hours.
Your kids attest to, correct?
Yes, my kids will tell me, less talking, more walking, Mom. Less talking, more walking. Yep.
So when you thought about your skills, what are your skills?
So I think narrowing that down, communication, which is also one of my top 5 strengths. I know that we talk about the Strengths Finders a lot.
Yes,
so communication is in there. And I have a way of putting people at ease and making them feel comfortable when we are talking. I've also been told I'm very good at influencing people, and I like to think of that as a good thing, not a bad thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So communication, and then I don't know, I have sometimes where I can just be in the grocery store, or even when I worked at my previous corporate job, people would just start talking to me and telling me things. And I really think I do a great job of listening and breaking into people's inner circles, I call it, like their circle of trust, and
Okay.
Chatting.
Excellent. And a way to also narrow down your skill set is to go ahead and take that Clifton Strengths Finders. It's 34 different personalities and skills, and it'll narrow down after a questionnaire what your top 5 are. And I have used it throughout the last 14 years of my business. I wouldn't say religiously, but I frequently refer to it. And when I find a fire in my belly about something, it usually lines up with the 5 that were narrowed down. So I highly encourage that as well. And what is your compulsion? Now, remember, this is the thing that's like, it's almost super geeky and you're embarrassed to say how much it's a compulsion and you can't not do it. So what is yours, Crystal?
Okay. So this one my husband helped me with because maybe I didn't want to admit it to myself. But right, because you say it can be super geeky, or I feel like mine is, I don't know, I feel like mine's a little self-centered, but I don't want it to be or mean it to be. So my compulsion is being where the action is. I really like to be enjoy new experiences and meet new people. And if there's a group of people or something going on, I want to be there and not necessarily need to be the center of attention, but I like to be where the action is at. And I think it is because I like to meet people and talk with people and learn new things and have fun and have people be happy when they're around me. So when I first thought about it, I'm like, oh, do I like to be the center of attention? We're like, no, I like to be where the action is.
Just to be where the action is, yeah.
Yeah.
And there is a skill set, as long as you're talking about that, that is significance. It's called significance. And it just means that you desire significance in your life. And in the interest of full disclosure, that is one of my top 5. It is embarrassing because you're like, great, it makes it sound like I want to be the center of attention. But when you read the paragraph of in the book, it does make you feel better about, no, it's not about being famous or anything like that. It's just that you seek significance in what you do, meaning being the top dog, so to say, and being able to move people or sway people in a direction because of the significance that you have. So then it made me feel better about it. But also a way to figure out your compulsion is knowing what makes you miserable. So if there was a new event in town or some new action thing, would it make you miserable not to have you and your family there?
Yes.
Okay.
I would be sitting here the whole time wondering what's going on and who's there and what's happening. Yes.
Yeah, so that is a good way also, listeners and encouragers, if the compulsion, if it's difficult to narrow it down, ask yourself what makes you miserable, because the opposite of that is usually what drives you. So after you've told us what your joy, your skill, and your compulsion are, what did you decide your super skill is?
I think that my super skill is connecting with people. Just simple. Yes.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. We have a way of thinking that it's got to be super sexy or like we have the super cape on, and that's not it at all. It just really speaks to all of those things, where you find joy, where your skills are, and where your compulsion is. And yours definitely, with the way these add up, is connecting with people. So how has knowing your super skill, because like you said, it was probably the most difficult part of the book, but once you know your super skill, and I'm trying not to make it so you guys don't do this part, the reason why I emphasize your super skill is when you know it, you can really hone in on why it's important to you, and mostly momentum and speed. Because when you know what you were meant to do, when God has provided you with your basically like your superhero cape here, this is your superpower, you can really utilize it to know, even if you're not in the stages where you have a business formed, you're in the brainstorming phase, these are things that you need to know to figure out if it's going to make you happy or miserable. So how have you used your super skill in your business and also your business model?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to me like struggling with this and preparing for our interview. Because it also brought to light that I could be using mine so much more. So thank you for asking me to be on it, because it started like brainstorming sessions on how I could use mine even more. But how I think that my business model works really well with my skill or my super skill is that because I am mobile, I get to travel around to different events in our area and go to people's homes, and I get to meet new groups of people all the time. So I get to connect with tons of different people and have fun with them. And I get to help the women that are at these events, or especially at the personal shows. I get to help them feel amazing because I learn about them a little bit. And then once I get into that circle of trust with them, they let me pick out their clothes to try on, and I can just see their faces light up after they put on an outfit that maybe they wouldn't have picked out themselves. And they look great and they feel great. And so I get that satisfaction of knowing I had a little piece of helping them feel that good. And that hopefully they feel that way every single time that they wear it. So I think I get to travel around and have new experiences. Almost every show or every event that I do is a different new experience. And then if I thought about, because I like to be where the action is, I can kind of create the action. I guess I can create the action with different events that I host. Like I'll put on a couple huge shows out at my parents' barn and invite my customers there. Or anytime I bring the truck to somebody's home, like I'm kind of bringing the action with me. Yeah. So I get to use it every week.
That is awesome, because as you were saying, as I was thinking, check. Your joy is being filled, your love tank's being filled, you're in the action, maybe even causing the action. It's all of those things. So I'm curious to know, when you started brainstorming, like, wait a minute, now that I know my super skill, what are some of the things you're brainstorming on doing for your business?
So I was thinking, because I don't have a brick and mortar, I'm not with my customers all the time. And so I need to be more active or use my skill more online and on Facebook and on Instagram by doing more lives and starting to connect with people even more via online. So I am brainstorming some ways to do that. I already do like a live every week, but I could probably do more of that, like style tips or styling sessions with people online or things like that, to just be able to chat live with people more often than when I have shows.
Yes, and we would love to know what the latest of the latest is too, and you were on the inside track. So I highly encourage being able to watch you live, because it helps those of us that don't necessarily have the time or don't know what the latest is, and especially when you're connecting with people, I think that would all be excellent.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens.
So I love encouragers that Crystal, once she narrowed down what her super skill is, was really able to hone in on it more in her current business, and then also brainstorm on new ideas going forward. So take the time to figure out what makes you light up. Where is your joy at? It's one of those things where you can stay up till 2 a.m. and not realize it's 2 a.m. and you're energized by it, not exhausted by it. That's a sign that it's your joy, your skill set. What'd you go to school for? What kind of experiences do you have in your childhood? And then also your compulsion. You can answer it two ways. What must you do and you geek out over it and it's embarrassing how many things you know about this whatever, or what would make you miserable? And that'll also tell what the opposite of that is something that's your compulsion. So thank you so much, Crystal. Crystal, how do our listeners get to check out your awesome mobile boutique?
Yes. Well, you can check it out online at thepaisleypod.com or on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. We are The Paisley Pod. So check us out, reach out. If you have questions or style questions or anything I can help you with, I would be absolutely honored to help you.
So thank you, Crystal, for sharing with us your super skill. I love that you told us how you're using it more in your business after you discovered what it is. If you'd like to know more about what your super skill is, first, get the book. It's super great to fill out, treat it like a workbook, to really hone in on these things. My whole goal is to make you feel less stressed and more empowered to do all the roles that God has gifted you in. And I really, truly believe that starting with your super skill will answer a lot of the questions you have and stop all the spinning, because you can know where your best skill set is and either hire or delegate the rest. So, encouragers, if you are really thinking about what the Encourager Workshop is about, I highly encourage you to go to my website, shoprst.com, claim your spot for our third workshop where we will be going over your super skill, going over your day-to-day actions and how to really come up with an action plan that will help you get to the next level or even just the next step in your business. We have 3 spots remaining. The next date for the Encourager Workshop is September 14th. So claim your spot today. I promise you will walk away feeling like a superhero with a really awesome cape, and you'll have a serious action plan on how to execute on all the awesome roles God has gifted you with. We got this, encouragers. Hey, encouragers, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you've had the scene where you're crying because there's no way you can meet all the roles in your life, I've been there. I've so been there, but I'm not there anymore. And I know how you can get out of that slump and start executing on all the things that God has equipped you to do. You can pick up my book at equippedtoexecute.com, also on my website at shoprst.com, and it's also available on Amazon. Thank you for tuning in, encouragers. Remember to subscribe so it's automatically on your phone, and please rate and review me. We got this, encouragers.